Nadrik, Salamno. For some of you thought I forgot. No, I didn't forget my Amharic at all. And if you're listening to this from anywhere else in Africa, that's how we say hello, how are you, and hi in Amharic. So my name is Emmanuel Etim, and I'm the CEO and chairman for AfriZoneMart.com, a mass merchant e-commerce platform for everything made in Africa. And we're so glad to be with you today. And so today I'm joined by Patrick Ndifon. He's the managing director for Cali Valley.
Yeah, so Cali Valley is an export assistance and support center for youth SMEs and startups.
Especially those who will be doing business within the intra-African trade area.
Yeah.
As you all know, the African Continental Free Area Agreement has brought to force. Thank you. So what's the first question?
All right, so the first question is, across Africa, there are platforms that enable e-commerce between different countries. How can Ethiopian companies, e-commerce companies, create a platform that are beyond borders?
Well, I think the first, that particular question should have 4 to 5 different answers. And the first answer to that question is, what is an offer? An e-commerce platform is first a platform. But what's going to go on the platform? So it should be first about the products. So what are the made in Ethiopia products that this platform wants to put out beyond the borders? And I can tell you, for example, Tomoka, Ethiopian coffee, that has already gone out of the borders without an e-commerce platform. So how does an e-commerce platform make access to that product available across the continent and around the world? There's Ethiopian leather products, even on AfriZoneMart.com, we have both the coffee, Tomoka, and we have the leather product. So how can an e-commerce platform in Ethiopia make access to Ethiopian leather products more available across the continent and around the world? The other is, how will people pay for it? The e-commerce platform, do they have the capacity to receive international payments? And I think Ethiopia is better positioned with a lot of diaspora, which means you can actually open an account domiciled in the US or in Europe, wherever, and use that as a means to receive international payments domiciled in foreign currencies, whilst the base of the business is selling made in Ethiopia products and so on and so forth. Because I do know at the moment the Central Bank of Ethiopia has not made the provisions available for your financial institutions to receive payments by international payment cards. The third is the delivery system. Ethiopian Airlines is one of the biggest on the continent of Africa and around the world as well. So Ethiopian Cargo, EMS, and so on are tools that the e-commerce platforms and business can use. But I want you to remember that an e-commerce platform is not the product. It may be a product for you as a business owner, but it's not a product. It is what it sells, it offers to the consumers that is the business. And that part of it also means how affordable it is, how fast it can get to the consumers, and what quality. And people are really complaining this is about buying what they see as they saw it online. And the fourth one is, who knows the platform exists? I mean, if you're going to put up a platform in Ethiopia, don't write it up in Amharic. You have to put it up in English, if you can, in French, and to a large extent in Swahili, because most of the people who are going to use the platform have to be able to interact with the product in the international language. And then you must still be able to ensure, as a platform or as an e-commerce system, you have interactions with the manufacturers and the producers. They need to be able to package those products to meet the demands of the international market, from meeting the standards to also having the communication system, the language for the products to be communicated, and then meet whether it's ISO standard, whether it's Food Drug Administration standards, or general standards as it applies to that particular product. You have something else to add to that?
No, that's perfect.
Excellent, thank you. So question 2?
In order to create a successful e-commerce platform, payment gateway, digital platform, and logistics are essential pillars. From your experience, how can we integrate these 3 pillars to create an e-commerce company that will achieve its goals?
Well, I will leave that to the expertise, the computer science experts and ecosystem and all of that. So I'll leave most of that conversations to him. But what I want to say here is, for any business, any idea, how you build your business, it's not just about, I want to own a business, I want to start an e-commerce platform and so on. You need to look at the different skill set that you need to deliver on your full objective. And I want e-commerce, I want IT experts, tech experts to understand that your IT skills is not a business, or building an e-commerce platform in and itself based on programming skills and so on is not the business. You still need other people to bring in their expertise. An MBA graduate, someone with experience in procurement, supply chain management, and all of this actually branding, marketing, all of this comes in to make it actually the business. So when you're thinking of having your e-commerce platform, don't limit yourself to just having the programmer and so on as part of your team. Two, it's a collaboration you're looking for, isn't it? I remember the days when I used to manage the African Union Volunteer Program. Some of you may know, may have read my profile. I was in Addis doing that for more than 10 years. I used to create this scenario where in order for you to develop and implement the projects we gave, you need to find people who will bring value to achieving the results. In other words, be results driven. So in order to achieve this result, who do I need on board? And if the person you have on board, or as it were, that is part of that team, is not going to be able to add value, you should be able to trade the person off to somewhere else where they need value or negotiate them to move. That means don't be sensational about who you bring on your team, either because of proximity, relationships, or connections. Be looking for those who help you deliver results on that objective. So now over to you, Patrick. Talk to them about that part of it that you guys know.
All right. So technically speaking, how do you integrate digital payments, a digital platform, and then the logistics part to build a successful e-commerce brand? There are two ways you can go about it. One, you can use existing technologies, integrate them together to build your platform, or you could build from scratch. Now, the advantage of using existing technologies is that it's much faster than building from scratch. And in today's world, a lot of companies would go the route of building using existing technologies. Take, for example, Airbnb. Now, Airbnb's tech stack includes 57 applications that are integrated together to deliver that value that Airbnb does. Only 7 of those applications are proprietary, meaning that those 7 applications were built by Airbnb themselves. Now, Airbnb is a pretty large company, so when starting out as an e-commerce brand, e-commerce business, you could look at, say, for example, existing payment platforms that exist, like some in Ethiopia include YenePay, EthioPay, and DumaPay. So those are online payment platforms. I'm sure they have APIs that you can integrate into your digital platform. Now, you don't have to also build that digital platform from scratch. You have WordPress, WooCommerce, you have BigCommerce, you have Joomla, you have Drupal. All of these are content management systems that make it very easy for you to build a website, in a matter of minutes. So you just integrate those two systems together. And I know that some of the Ethiopian online payment platforms integrate nicely into WooCommerce. And then when it comes to logistics, so look at logistic companies within your space. There's Borderless, there's Ethiopian Shipping Logistics Services Enterprise. So those companies, you could integrate them into your platform where you have, so people make payments on your platform via your digital website, and you can process the orders through these logistic companies. So that's how you integrate all of this together to meet your e-commerce goals. Now, some of these companies, like the online payments platforms, they offer you services like pay on demand, cash on delivery, and the likes, or even pay in bits and batches like that. So the platforms already exist. It will save you time. It will also save you money to use existing technologies and then bring them together to build the e-commerce, as against building it from scratch. It will take longer and most likely be expensive in the long run, because you need the maintenance of developers and all of that to keep the site going.
But I need to mention that it's also important to recognize that in order to do all of this, since you're talking about going beyond borders, you need to pay attention to the realities that the Central Bank of Ethiopia's policy right now, fiscal policy, is very, plays a major part in how you will do this from, sitting in Addis. So you must be looking at collaborations that help you to do this, whether it is housed in Nigeria, Lagos, or Calabar, or it's in New York, where you have the integrations that allow you to do cross-border transactions, financial transactions especially. I don't know what the CB policy is on bitcoins and so on, but I do know cryptocurrency. But I do know that afrizonmart.com, for example, we do accept cryptocurrency as payments for some of the products we have on the platform. So think about that in that perspective. Question number 4, Patrick.
All right. So Most e-commerce companies concentrate on urban areas as their market segment. Hence, a lot of the rural market is untapped. What models can startup e-commerce companies implement to explore this enormous untapped market?
Well, I think first of all, okay, I'm going to be blunt with my answer. I don't know what Patrick's going to think, but I'm going to be blunt with my answer. We need to face the realities of our economic environment, and this is across the continent. 90% of African consumers still do their shopping in open markets. That's the first reality. Number two is that despite the level of the middle class that we have and so on, the question is not how do you make rural people have access to e-commerce. I think the question is how do you use e-commerce to help rural people have access to markets and digitize the middleman by literally removing the so-called middlemen and allow them literally be selling to the direct consumer or the direct manufacturer wherever they are in the world. So I think that should be the focus. How do you deploy e-commerce platforms and tools or solutions to help people in rural areas have access to market? I mean, this should be the focus. This is my focus in what we are doing with AfricanMan.com, and I think you should be thinking about this. I mean, I've traveled to around Ethiopia more than most of you listening to maybe, and I do know the amount of resources across Ethiopia. I lived in Addis for 10 years, and for major of those years, I was told that there were no fish. There was no fish in Addis, in Ethiopia. So a lot of diplomats who travel to Dakar, Senegal, will go with boxes, coolers to bring fish. And yet, outside of Addis, a few hours away, we were finding fish. It was tips something. What did we used to call it? Not tips for is the meat, tips fish. I can't remember the word for fish anymore, but it was tips fish. I had that, was it in Gondar or where? I had it somewhere in one of my trips, traveling across the country. It was tasteful, it was so delicious. The fish was wonderful, fresh catch of the day. I also know that just across Addis towards Debrecen, you can buy fish, right? Different types of fish. So the question is, how do you help those people have access to market? Even the international market you have in Addis Ababa does not know what the country has. So while you're thinking of going beyond borders, let's go beyond borders, looking at Addis as a diplomatic capital of Africa. How do we penetrate that community to realize what Ethiopia has to offer? There's yams in Ethiopia, and people don't know, close towards the boundary between Nairobi, Mombasa and Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, there is yams in those areas. There is plantain. So I'm just giving some examples of the certain things that we never knew were there. A lot of us started traveling within the country and found that they were there. But how do you bring them using e-commerce to make them available? Yeah, this should be an example. Another example is actually to look at the fact that when it comes to rural and urban, the challenge has never been the use of the tools or the service and so on. Society consumers can adapt when they need to. But the question is, how affordable are those products and commodities? And how are they packaged and how are they preserved? So that I think that conversation is even much more broader than just having a conversation about how to use your tech skills to build an e-commerce business. And we're always available. I told you he's the managing director of the Export Assistance and Support Center, which I believe is available to young people across the continent. So we can always interact with you more in addition to the hub where you guys are at, to see how we can assist you to begin to apply the non-core IT, core tech approach, business development, export readiness and so on. Because the thing is, we need to start talking to the youth SMEs in Ethiopia to respond to this need, this market demand need. That is what you as e-commerce tech experts and whatever brand, innovators will respond to. Okay, final words and advice. Well, I would say advice will be continuous. You can reach us, check us out, reach us, continue to talk to us, and we'll continue to talk with you. But the other part I want you to remember is this. Ethiopia, you have a skyscraper. The Central Bank of Ethiopia building around there in Addis, in the metropolis there, is a skyscraper. I've seen it. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. And it is one of the first we have on the continent, I think, or if not one of the few we have on the continent of Africa. What do I mean by that? If you keep the costs low or help these young manufacturers and producers to keep the costs low, if you ensure it's affordable, it's available, if you ensure that you can get it delivered on time, then you have a good raison d'etre for doing business as an e-commerce matchmaking platform, whatever the question would be. And you need to know that Africa is ripe for this approach to doing business, and we need a lot of young people in it and on it. Don't limit it also to groceries and commodities and so on. Think beyond fashion, think beyond consumables, start thinking of tech, cars. I know there's a made in Ethiopia car, let it be part of what you're offering, to consumers beyond the borders. I know there's Ethiopian tea. I know there's Ethiopian ketchup. I know there's a lot of those things are possible to be sold out of the country Ethiopia. So my last piece of advice is think beyond Addis, think beyond what we like as Ethiopians, our injera. Do you know that since I left the country, I've been looking for injera? Yes, I know there's an injera store in Abuja, but I'm so busy sometimes I'm traveling. How do I get injera here, fresh from Addis? How do I get it? How do I get my tips furfur or my dodo what? Think about those kinds of things. It's possible, it can be done, and I'm expecting to see you guys do it. And you should check out afizulmat.com. We have some Ethiopian products there. You might get inspiration on what to do. Any advice for the people?
Yeah, from my experience building an e-commerce platform, I think the biggest thing consumers are looking for is trust. So whatever you're doing, there has to be integrity. What you're posting online, whatever product you're featuring online has to be the exact same product that your customer gets to hold in their hands. That's very important. The more, the greater the level of trust, the easier it is for them to,
in other words, people should be, what people have paid for must be what they are going to get.
Exactly.
So your responsibility is not just to create the tech and get excited you have a platform, but you must create the process within your business to ensure that what the people are producing is exactly what they are selling to the consumers eventually. And one last advice, don't import from foreign countries and use the e-commerce platform to sell it. Don't do it. Thanks. Then Nadir.